Talk about aerodynamics. See, when you're building aircraft, big shock, it's all aerodynamics. So I'm turning this off for a second view wise so you can just listen to what I'm saying. Now, if you've been watching so far, you know that I've showed you how to build two completely different wings. One, a very thin, it's very easy to build, very light, very, very fast. I am going to show you all the measurements for that one, but first we're going to do some outdoor testing. Got to build your interest after all. But this is kind of to show you what the minimum and the maximum are. Now, I showed you this one, and it's cool, but it's heavy. Very, very heavy. And when I built the wing, I know that there's a lot of people who will tell you, oh yeah, build a structure, da da da. Okay, I did that. And it's very heavy. And it's a good structure. And it's a good wing. I dare anybody to tell me this is not a good wing. Because it is. It's got a good lift profile. It's got actually a good lift to weight ratio. But because the entire glider is at this weight, when I launch it with an elastic, it only gets so much momentum, no matter how good I make it at aerodynamics. And it's got a lot of drag, man. Compare it to this. This is a little tiny, thin wing. And because of that, I'm going to show you guys something. We're going to get a little scientific on you, and I hope that that won't bore you. But I feel like, at this point, we kind of need to go into it, because I have a scale here, and it's a very, very good one. And I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to show you guys where this is at. Now, I'm going to get this, and we're going to turn it on. Now, in the first place, I will say to you that, on, it's a good one to calibrate it. Now, I've taken just these three little pieces off, guys. And that's 0.39 of a gram, so that's 0.4. And all I did was skim the tips off of these, and those are the pieces. I need to lose a lot of weight off that big thing, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm just gonna gently hold it by the tail and put the weight of it on it, and we'll see what it says without me actually supporting it. Just let it rest against me. So we're looking at, from what I'm seeing here, 20 grams. So we're going to call it 21 grams. And now we're going to do the same thing with this one. You're going to see it's a lot more grams, okay? Now, this is an incredibly sensitive scale, and it's really hard for me to get a good reading while I'm touching it at all, but it's looking right around 34 was what I was seeing there most of the time as an average. And so that makes sense, actually, for what I'm seeing. It's well over an ounce. But, again, we're going to check this one. And I'm just going to do it like this. I'll put the scale out in the open. We're going to calibrate it. And we'll go through the whole thing. I am ready with the weight. But you don't place it until it prompts you to. These ones are great. They recalibrate themselves every time, but they're actually intended to be recalibrated every time. And then I'm just going to balance the whole glider on it, and it'll be okay. Sometimes it takes a while for it to do its thing. I might even have to restart it and make it do it again. But I'll just place it and see what happens. Because normally, it did, and it passed it. Alright, so we're going to put that over. And now I'm just going to lay this across, and we'll see what we get there. And what are we getting? Over and out. Yeah, it was quite a bit more than I'm seeing right there. See, that's the problem. You can't get it all on it, and it's resting somewhere else. But we're looking at around 20 grams if I do it this way. And if I do it this way, it's showing right around the same. So we're going to call that one 20 grams. And this one, we're going to put on, and we're looking at 35 grams, guys. That's pretty heavy. 35 grams is a lot. That's what, what I was getting to is it's got Oh, there you go. A lot of crap to it. And why has it got a lot of crap to it? Oh, because I made it too big and now it's shit. Okay, that's how it is. It looks cool. It's not really shit. It's actually pretty good. The problem is, it's not ideal. And the reasons are really simple. One, for a lift body, it's good. If I had a better launching system, this is actually a good wing. If I could make it 10% lighter, it'd be a great wing. So on that note, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to cut into it here and run this to right about here and then bring it out on this line perfect so that it matches the rest, and it'll just lose a little fat from in here, and this will be a nice line. Then at the same time, I'm going to do the same thing I did with these and took the tips off them to make the rear end lighter, because I'm lightening the whole thing. I've also gone onto this guy and made it lighter. Now I've already done this part, and I shaved the nose to make it smoother and a little bit lighter, and even still, it's well over 30 grams. So you want to be careful about your weight. And if you're going to make something like this, I'm going to say that the ideal weight is between 20 and 25 grams. Okay, now that's just me, but I'm not done yet. This one is not going to be 30 when I'm done. I'm going to aim for right around 24, 25 grams, and I'll try it again. Now, once I've cut the wings, the other part of that is once I've taken this out, that'll actually be around 4 or 5 grams worth of material I'm going to take out there. And then right here, I'll take off the rest because these tips are coming off as well. And I'm actually going to do it up a little higher and do them straight in line with the plane of motion, is what they call that, when they're straight from the perspective of looking at the front of the airplane. If you were looking at the way it travels and the way that the wind would hit the wing, they'll be straight to the wind. And I might cut them right about here because that's actually a really good spot. It's really proportionate, and I could make this one fairly light. This one's 20 grams. You know what? If I could get even to 28 with this one, it would actually be significantly improved and would be sick. I'm pretty sure when I pop these pieces out and take that weight off the front of the body and put it out at the tips where it's further back, the weight problem goes away with this. Really, it does. So all in all, so far, I've probably taken off already about a gram of material. But that's not much. I mean, it was talking 35 grams. So we're looking at about 34 now. And when I'm finished, we'll be looking right around 30 grams if I just do the insides of this. By the time I do the wing tips, I could be looking anywhere from 28 grams, depending on how little I take off, to 22, 23, 24, whatever. I could even make it a really short wing, like this, and it would be very light. So it all depends on what I want to do. And to be honest, what I wanted was for something that's going to slot right in between this one and our high lift wing, which I'm going to engineer to be my mid-range. No, it's going to be the slowest one. That was the plan. And it's just going to be basically for lots of lift and a good little glider. This one isn't that. This is the speed model. This is the fastest one. So I want one that's in the middle. Since I already know those two designs work, and I know that the other one is going to be slow, I want this in the middle. So I figured I'd build it in the middle and build them progressively slower and progressively kind of more beginner friendly, so to speak. So this one right now is actually flying much better. It is a good little airplane. It was right away. It technically flew, but it did short flights. And it won't be really good for doing tricks and stuff like that. But right now, I can already feel it's gotten noticeably lighter in the tail. And that is a good thing, making it just slightly more nose heavy. And it does fly better now in this configuration with this tail. It's literally the same pieces. I just snipped the ends off them in the small amounts you saw on the scale. So there's not much to it. I mean, I really didn't do much. But I'm not done. And I think that this... Look at the difference here in wingspan. And you'll see what I mean. I need to cut right about here and cut it straight off here. And if I actually do that, there's about 3 grams on each side, I'm guessing, in material. And then I'd be looking at another 3 grams or 2 grams at least from the insides of the backs of these wings. And if you took off that 8 grams from the 34, you'd be looking at a pretty reasonable weight. And I think that, well, right now I think it said 30, but it was 34 before. So it's like it'll come down in weight. And when I get it from 34 to 24, this thing will be quick and rapid. Okay, I don't really know if I want that. I want this one coming in at a mere 20 grams is a featherweight, and I'm going to make it even lighter because I'm not done with it yet. I haven't even trimmed off the glue yet in the places I don't need it. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to trim this as well because it's longer than I need now, although I like it because it's good to grip on. I'm going to take this off because it's not very aerodynamic. I'm going to treat this the same way I did the other one and trim all that lip off. And when I'm done, this will actually be right around 18 or 19 grams of ridiculous awesomeness as far as the speed goes. This one, I kind of want to be more the trick one. It's got the weight for it. And once I get this dialed in, I know that it will roll well and should pinwheel really nicely and roll very smoothly. And so I tempted to want to just leave it alone and fly it and see what it's like outside with actual ailerons on it. And see if I can, and instead of cutting this all off, I trim it and turn it into ailerons for now. And if I don't like that, I can take them right off, follow the line down, take the tips off, and I'll have a much more aerodynamic wing. Not so much, but it will be a lighter wing. See, aerodynamics is one thing, but we've come to a point here where aerodynamics ain't the problem. It's just too darn big. It's just too darn heavy. And what you need is something light, like that. Something small. And they look the same. I mean, they're both little planes. They're both made of the same materials. Only this one doesn't have the reinforcement in the wing, and that actually makes a big difference. I also didn't have to glue it together, and even though I did it fairly lightly, I also had to glue it into the frame here. So there's a lot of glue encompassed there, at least 2 grams of glue in this plane that are extra because of the amount of stuff that I had to do. In fact, it's more like 3 or 4. But by shortening the wing, I can maintain its really sweet, stiff, tough nature and get the weight I want while still having good lift. And here's the trick about it. If I go from the back of this wing across, not this way, and then straight back, and the reason is, if I go straight back, this lift edge is creating lift. As the more I keep of this and this intact, the better. So if I lighten it this way and go in here first, and that's my plan, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Take off all that. You see that shape? It's got a little fat in there. It's like you can tell. It needs a trim. Now, when I designed this little course for you guys, I designed this one in my head because you need to see 3 stages of this that commonly get achieved by people. 1, they accidentally make a bullet and they can't reproduce it. 2, they make one way too heavy that looks cool, looks badass. And if I can make one this cool and spend this much time and effort into it and make it so cool, perfect, how come it don't fly right? This is bullshit. And people start saying stuff like that and they get discouraged. Okay, well, that's no good. What I want is for you to be able to make it, and I mean, this is solid. This one's downright flimsy. This one is a brick, This one you don't flex. It's really solid. So, congratulations, Keith. It's really tough. If I had been making a boomerang, it would have been perfect. Come to think of it, I should just cut it right here, and it would be an awesome boomerang. But that only says that it's a good flying wing. And it doesn't need to be shorter. It doesn't need to be anything except lighter. Technically, the only reason I would make it shorter is because it needs to be lighter. So, while you're designing your plane, and while you're thinking about your build process and figuring out how you're going to do it, I've given you all the answers. I've given you the template on how to make your wings and make a sweet shape, no matter how you want to make it. I've showed you how to go about it. If you want a complex shape, there's an order to do it in. There's a way to go about it. You can make these kinds of shapes work by making them stiff. I have made this lift body very much more effective, and the whole thing is generating lift. It's actually a really good design, but I did a few things wrong. One of them was I made this too long because I wasn't sure how long it was going to need to be, like I told you to do. And so now I've cut it down, and I cut it down by about 1.25 inches, which still, if you look carefully, it's still about another 1.25 inches longer than the other one. Not quite, maybe an inch, but it's longer. And so, and again, that is weight. Now in this case, that's weight over the front. That is a bonus. That is good, and it's not a bad thing. So I left it like that. I made it a little longer on purpose, but I'm still not done, because we are actually going to make this pretty much a stealth wing kind of a thing looking, only it's pretty much going to come to exactly the same angle here, and I've pretty much decided it's going to come to exactly the same place. And if you look at the proportions it would have, if I do that and zip it off right here, it would be so cool looking, because it looks like a little stealth in the air, and at the same time, it'll be fast, man. Also, what a lot of people will tell you, and they are right, is that if it has heavy wing tips, it'll tend to want to tip stall, which means it tends to want to lean over one way or the other. Those things are bad. Adding extra weight, no matter how cool it looks, when you're talking about a little thing like this that's only powered by an elastic, is bad. There's only so many grams you're going to sling from a little tiny elastic like that out of a common bag of elastics. If you want to start getting better elastics and all that stuff, that's cool. But in the end, you can save yourself a whole lot of trouble and make it a lot easier for yourself if you bring your aircraft in at under 30 grams. This one's a fair bit over 30 grams, and that's bad. But I will show it to you in different stages. This is the Fat Bird, and we're going to pare it down a little bit, but only a little bit, and a little bit at a time. And the reason is, it's an experiment. I'm not sure, because I've never built these before, exactly where the point comes when I'll have what I want. How do I get from having the really slow one that has a glide path of about 30 feet to this one that has a glide path of 150 feet and is a rocket ship getting there and does it in about 3 seconds? It'll go even farther. Okay, so if there's only 10 grams between them in weight, well, that's not that much, man. But there's more than that. So we're going to cut the weight and lose the fat, and you're going to see that this thing is going to be a bullet. Not necessarily. It still has more resistance because it's a thicker wing, and that is the key. I was trying to build something slower than this, but faster than it is. What I want, this one in fact is even slower than what I aimed for my slowest one to be. And that's because I don't want it to suck, and it has to have a certain amount of speed to be enjoyable. It has to have a certain amount of range it can travel for it to really be fun, and you have to be able to set the ailerons and do a loop with it and bring it back to yourself. You have to be able to set the elevator like an elevator and make it do a loop or an actual nice arcing turn and bring it back around to yourself. That's the whole point of these kind of toys. And if it won't do those basic tricks, it is not a successful build. Right now, it would not complete a single loop. Why? It doesn't have the power to weight ratio. It has too much resistance and too much weight. But it's a good design, and I'm nowhere near done yet. This is how you dial in a new design. I said we were going to patent something together pretty much. Well, we kind of are. I'm not actually going to file the patents. Instead, it's going to be open source, and you're going to be able to build it for free. So this isn't a bad idea. Look at that. It would be a cool looking little stealth thing and take off the weight right here. This would lose me about 10 grams per side. No, it's going to lose me 4 grams a side, I'm guessing. And that'll be about 8 grams, making this one probably weigh in 23.5 to 24 grams. That's my target. And I know if I make it that, It'll still be slower than this, but it'll be a lot more fun than it is right now. Keith out.